look forward to them. But much more importantly to that, we look forward to developing the policies, some of which we hear today, and we need to hear a lot more of that.
Right, well then how are you going to make the case to the leadership to lift pay freezes to help with the so-called cost of living crisis?
Well, the cost of living, obviously, as Ed highlighted today, is going down and down. Even economists, more and more economists, are now making it clear that the wage depression is a clear obstacle to the structural problems
but the leadership, our economy. But the leadership's not going to...
I'll give you an easy way to do it now, and maybe David Cameron might be listening to this. Increase the minimum wage by £1 an hour. Increase the minimum wage tomorrow by £1 an hour, or David Cameron can announce it next week at his conference. What that would do, it would attack low pay. It would be a huge stimulus to the economy, because that's what we want, economic growth. And we might then see a real turnaround in the economy, not the false one that Osborne and Cameron are talking about.
Yeah.
The real test of whether the economy is recovering is whether people's standard of living is going up. Go around the country and ask people whether that's happening, because it isn't.
Right, but my question was, how are you going to persuade the Labour leadership to change their policy in terms of pay freezes?
Well, we'll have to continue to argue. I mean, on the one hand, Ed Balls has talked about the need for a stimulus in the economy. He was quite right. But then he talked about agreeing to the pay freeze for public sector workers. Absolutely contradictory. I disagree with Ed Balls and Ed Miliband on that. The way to stimulate our economy and get sustainable growth in our economy is to start to raise wages. Move us away from this zero-hour path to poverty that this government has got us on, and start putting real wages into people's wage packets. That will stimulate the economy, and that will reduce the deficit, and that will create a much better civilised society than the one we've currently got.
So then, McCluskey, explain to us what you meant when you said if this government continues to attack us and continues to try and reduce our rights even further, if we're pushed outside of the law, then so be it. What exactly are you warning them of?
Oh, I mean precisely what I say. This government, apparently their answer to everything is to attack workers.
Yes.
Is to try and restrict the rights of ordinary workers. British workers have the worst protection in the whole of Europe. How can that be right when we're the very nation that
are you planning? What are you planning to do?
Defeated. I'm going to tell you. At the end of the Second World War, we defeated fascism and gave Europe all of the freedoms they currently have. How can it be that German workers are better protected than British workers? And yet this government continues to attack us. So my answer to them is very, very clear. Push us outside of the law and you will live with the consequences, because we've got no intentions
What are they?
of making working people, we've got no intentions of laying down and allowing workers' rights, which are protected by international law, taken away from us. So if they want to go down that road, that's their problem, and it will be the problem, and they'll have to be responsible for the consequences.
So is that wildcat strike action then?
They'll have to be responsible for the consequences. We'll have to wait to see what that means. What I'm saying is, if they're setting out to reduce and make trade unions more and more ineffective in the belief that we will bend the knee and let them walk over us, they are sadly mistaken. We will not do that. We will not do that.
All right.
Our history is strewn. In fact, the history of the world is strewn with people who defied the law, People right throughout our history and the history of the world have done that because it was a bad law and people were fighting for their rights. And that's what Unite and trade unionists will do.
Enjoy your dinner tonight. I'm sure